Program Director, Dada Tim Modise. I haven't seen you for quite a while. It's wonderful to see you again as you continue to do your wonderful work. Thank you very much. Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Minister Ibrahim Patel. Minister of Finance, Mr. Inaugural. I also saw Minister of Human Settlements, Minister Kubai, Premier David Makura, the Premier of the Gauteng Province, and possibly other premiers who may also be here, whom I haven't seen. President of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, Ms. Zingi Swalosi, representatives of labor and political parties and members of parliament who are here, and MECs, representatives and leaders of workers' ownership trusts, members of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Advisory Council, we recently appointed, leaders and representatives of Business Unity South Africa and the Black Business Council, Your Excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners who are also here, delegates and ladies and gentlemen. Let me also join the Minister in offering an apology for the delay that you've all suffered and being made to wait in long queues just to register to come in here. We apologize for this, and we will make sure in the future that registration processes to a mere conference do not delay people, because your main objective is to come and participate in a conference and not to stand in a queue to register to get a lapel or an armband. Today is an important milestone. It's a milestone that many of us have looked forward to. This inaugural Black Industrialists and Exporters Conference is an opportunity for us to reflect in advancing redress and equity in the South African economy. It is also an opportunity to discuss what we need to do together to expand the frontiers of economic transformation for the next decade, the following decade, and for the future. Next year marks 20 years since the promulgation of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Act. An act that started its genesis from black business. Black business formations felt there was a need to define black economic empowerment and also to come up with proposals of how to broaden it. And they decided to set up the Black Economic Empowerment Commission, which I was asked to chair. And it came up in the end with proposals that led to the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act. It is undeniable that we have made gains in transforming a skewed and racially structured economy. By way of example, in 1994, it is said that there were around 150,000 black-owned formal businesses in South Africa. Today, there are well over 300,000, I'm told, but I think it's many more than that. Black entrepreneurs who own over half of small businesses in the formal sector. And there are many more in the informal sector, as we all know, who also contribute to the notion of black economic empowerment. In addition to the progress in management, shareholding, and ownership of businesses by black people, there has also been substantial progress on employment equity, much more needs to be done. According to labor surveys, the number of black managers in the private sector has more than doubled over the past 20 years, from 125,000 in 2002 to 350,000 today. And obviously we want to see much more than that. In the public sector, the number has tripled. As we reflect on the progress that we have made, we must also critically examine areas where transformation has been slow and where implementation has also been weak or non-existent. As this conference recognizes and celebrates the successes of the Black Industrialist program, it also needs to set out what our responsibilities are, individually, collectively, and all of us, to advance inclusive entrepreneurship in South Africa and to consolidate real effective entrepreneurship. Our Black Industrialist strategy is underpinned by two core commitments. Firstly, to secure greater diversity in ownership and control in the economy, which is crucial for economic growth, for economic dynamism, as well as social solidarity. Secondly, a commitment to promote emerging enterprises to drive inclusive industrialization and growth of our economy. Our strategy really aims to ensure that we secure greater representativity across the economy, all the while generating greater prosperity and employment. It is aimed at opening the doors for Black people to play a meaningful role in the economy of our country. And by meaningful role, as the Black Economic Empowerment Commission said, at the ownership level, at the management level, at the control level. Over the past 6 years, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, as well as the Industrial Development Corporation, the National Empowerment Fund, and other agencies have supported approximately 900 Black industrialists. Over the past 11 years, Black enterprises have been supported to the value of 55 billion rand. And that is not Mickey Mouse money. This is real money that the government has put to good use to support the establishment and the growth of Black industrialists, who we are celebrating today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, deserves a round of applause for the industrialists, not so much for the government. Because this has been a real investment commitment by government, living up to its overriding objective of advancing the interests of those who were prevented from playing a meaningful role in the economy of our country. And of course, government does much more than that, of an empowerment nature, on an overall and overarching basis. Estimates by the IDC suggest that the socio-economic returns of this program have been even more far-reaching. And this includes supporting the creation of some 70,000 jobs and adding over 160 billion. Now I realize this numbers game can tie your tongue. I remember others who have had trouble. Okay, this needs to be said correctly. Adding over 160 billion to our country's GDP. Give a round of applause. The problem is, when it is a lot of money, you tie your tongue around the numbers, and small businesses continue to benefit from preferential procurement by the state and receive support to grow and to expand. Now, I want to pause and talk about preferential procurement because this is an area that we are focusing on, and going ahead with the amendment of the legislation so that we can consolidate this instrument that government has, so that through public procurement we're able to open the frontiers, to open the gates, to enable many more of our people, women, young people, black entrepreneurs, to participate in a meaningful way in starting their businesses, growing their businesses, knowing very well that they have off-take opportunities and they have a market and they have a customer that they can make things for, that they can provide services to. So our Procurement Act is in the process of being finalized, and it will open more opportunities for our black compatriots. The worker shareholder regime also continues to improve. Now, this is another exciting area where we've been able to make and continue to make tremendous progress. A study by the DTIC found that companies with employee stock ownership employ at least 450,000 workers. More and more companies are opting also in advancing their own empowerment processes to include workers as owners, and we need to ensure that this becomes meaningful ownership. The Black Business Council has a number of ideas in this regard, and we want those to also be incorporated as ideas and as innovative thoughts as we advance this process. These successes are testament to a shared commitment to transformation and to deepened collaboration between the state, the private sector, and other actors in the economy. And yet, as much as we are working to achieve the vision that was set out by our forebears in the Freedom Charter, that all shall share in the country's wealth, we have not yet overcome the structural defects and deficits of our economy. These defects are persistent and they continue to run deep. They are reflected in the high levels of joblessness in our economy. Under apartheid, racist patterns of land ownership strangled the black agricultural sector and in fact destroyed the black agricultural sector that had been grown by our forebears over many years. Black business was relegated to the townships and to the homelands, the so-called Bantustans. Not only did they receive no government support to grow, but they were also deliberately stifled. Black children did not inherit wealth in the form of businesses and capital or housing. And this is where generational poverty was spread around. Because the norm is that you inherit something from your parents, you then grow it and pass it on to your children. In our case, collectively, as black people, we inherited nothing from our parents and therefore could pass on nothing also to our children. So the generational poverty was the inheritance we got as our lives developed and as our lives were destroyed by apartheid policies. Townships lacked industrial and commercial sites, and the infrastructure needed to run businesses was completely absent. Many people, especially black women, faced the obstacles to getting loans, business operating licenses, as well as premises. And even if you were a black man, you just found it impossible to go to loans. As you went to, yes, the very existing banks that still operate today. In those days, these very banks found it impossible to give loans to black people. With the country's majority deliberately and systematically excluded from the economic mainstream for centuries, it is little wonder that self-employment and entrepreneurship in South Africa are at lower levels than most of our peer economies. In other upper middle income countries to which we belong, small and medium employers and self-employed people make up around 1 in 3 of all employed people in the rural areas and 1 in 7 in the towns. In our own country, the figure is just over 1 in 20 in both rural and urban areas. According to modeled estimates from the International Labour Organization, business owners in South Africa, plus family members who work for them, make just over 17% of the total employment. This is compared to 46% in other countries, for instance, such as China, and in over 31% in other upper middle income countries. Self-employment and entrepreneurship are the engines of growth and job creation in any other economy. They support innovation, they boost competitiveness, and bring new products and services into the economy. To a large extent, this entrepreneurial deficit is the legacy of the policies of the past. We were held back and chained to the backwards areas of economic development. But 28 years into democracy, there are still barriers preventing black entrepreneurs from meaningful and equitable participation in the economy. These barriers are particularly challenging for women, for young people, and also for people living with disabilities. They are particularly challenging for entrepreneurs in townships and also especially in the rural areas. These entrepreneurs have difficulty accessing finance, accessing markets, technology, and infrastructure. There is red tape and other bureaucratic obstacles that continue to hold our budding entrepreneurs back. On a wider scale, there is also the concentrated nature of the economy and ownership patterns and inclusion from major value chains. This is a reality that was also recognized by international bodies such as the World Bank and the IMF, who, when looking at our economy, said the problem with the South African economy is that it is just too concentrated. There are just a few corporations that control everything. So the economy is not loosened to a point where there can be many players and entrants in various sectors of our economy. And this is a particular challenge, particularly when it comes to job creation and to spreading the entrepreneurial flair amongst our people. For this reason, even as we celebrate Black entrepreneurial success, our eyes must look towards the horizon. While we are here to deliberate on learnings from the Black Industrialist program, as well as other initiatives, this conference that you are having today, which is a historic conference, is also about shifting the transformation agenda to a higher gear. What we want to see from this conference is the makings of a new, improved trajectory for broad-based Black economic empowerment. We want to see a new type of approach to broad-based Black economic empowerment. We want concrete proposals on how to leverage both capacity and resources across society. Across society, because our main remit is how we broaden Black economic empowerment, so that economic empowerment should not only be restricted to a few. It must be broadened and it must be inclusive, and our people must have a sense and feeling that they are also included. We also want a frank discussion about impediments to the expansion of Black business, not just from government, but from the private sector as well. And yes, I do invite you to also talk about how government becomes an impediment to the growth of your businesses, and how government embarks on processes that, for instance, prevent your growth or even destroy your growth. I know for a fact that one of the issues that you will want to raise, which you must raise, is how, if you transact with government, we are able to give you opportunities, but at the same time, we destroy you by not paying you on time, or not paying you at all. And this is what we also must discuss. We need to talk about that frankly and openly as we are making efforts to solve this problem of non-payment or late payment by government, and look at how best we can come up with solutions. And I'm glad that the Black Business Council is a participant here, because they have a number of ideas, and I want to be here present with you until lunchtime to hear what your suggestions are. We need to talk about the private sector procurement, about value chains, about access to finance for emerging Black businesses, and about how existing systems militate against emerging Black business. Yes, let us be open and honest and talk about how the private sector can enhance the growth of Black businesses. We need to talk about the inefficiencies in the economy that affect established and emerging businesses alike. We should be discussing the steps we have taken and still need to take to significantly improve the state of our ports, the state of our rail lines and roads, because the disrepair of our roads, the inefficiency of our ports is what could be impeding your own growth as exporters and as producers. We need to discuss the far-reaching reforms that we are taking in a number of areas. In telecommunications, in energy and water, and the improvement that we are bringing about in competitiveness of our economy broadly, and also the steps we are taking to reduce the cost of doing business. These reforms are all necessary if we are to create conditions that enable Black industrialists to emerge, to grow, as well as to flourish. In particular, we need to act decisively and urgently to end load shedding in our economy, load shedding that is causing such huge damage to our economy, but I'm sure you are going to tell us that load shedding that is disrupting your own business operations and frustrating your efforts to reach higher levels of growth. Like every other actor in the economy, Black industrialists can simply not grow without a reliable supply of affordable energy. That is a reality and that is the truth. We know that. We have done much over the last 4 years to transform the country's energy landscape and bring new generation capacity online. But that is not enough, and we need to do much more and to move faster. That is why I've brought together all relevant departments and entities to work on an integrated set of measures to add additional power to our grid in the shortest possible time. We are currently engaged in consultations with social partners on these measures and will soon be able to announce a number of measures that provides an effective response to the energy crisis. At this conference, we need to come up with solutions to challenges facing Black entrepreneurs. How, for example, can the private sector scale up the mentoring process so that emerging Black businessmen and women, young and middle-aged and old, do not find themselves set up for failure? What support can the IDC, various other government entities offer to Black industrialists and Black entrepreneurship projects funded by the private sector, whether in the form of guarantees or other instruments? What role can angel and venture capital play in bridging the finance gaps that both aspirant and established Black businesses rely on for their sustainability? And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we can begin to advance some of these businesses that have sprung up and that are going to be showcased today to the listed platform of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, so that they are able to raise more finance, so that they are able to demonstrate that, yes, they are growing businesses, they are reaching out to new and broader markets. We need to also find out how we can mobilize Black capital in one shape, form or other, to support some of these emerging Black industrialist businesses. Many others have done it on that basis to support and grow their businesses. And how can we mobilize? Because there is a lot of capital that resides amongst our people. And how can we come up with financial instruments
to harness that energy of that capital and bring it to bear to support these growing industrial businesses so that one day we too can have black industrialist companies like General Electric, black industrialist companies like the big companies that we have that play at a global level. And how we can have national as well as continental champions that are well supported, well helped by the energy that resides in our own country. So I do want us, maybe when we next meet, I do want to hear that some of the companies are emerging and they are also going to be listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. They're going to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange and so forth. And I'd like us to dream big. I want our black industrialists to be big dreamers, to have great ambitions, and be listed, yes, on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, to be listed on the Lagos Stock Exchange, and be able to harness a lot of capital to be able to grow their businesses. That is the dream that I would like us to all have. I can see that you are so afraid that you don't even begin to realize that this is an achievable dream. It is an achievable dream. Another aspect that we need to also focus on is research and development. I would like to see the various black industrialist companies that we are going to celebrate today to also, at the next iteration of this conference, to tell us that they have embedded research and development within their own structures, and they are beginning to focus on research and development so that they can grow better, so that they can look to the future, produce better products, and innovate more and more. I want to hear them say they are underpinning what they are doing with innovation, with creativity, with creating new products and new services. And that should be done through research and development. It has been found that companies that focus more on research and development are able to achieve a lot more. I used to be associated with a company where one day I was walking around and met a young person, and I asked him, "What do you do here?" And he said, "Nothing really." And I said, "What do you mean you do nothing?" He says, "No, I just work here to think and to come up with new ideas. And that's all I do. Sometimes I don't even come to the office. I stay at home." And I looked at him, he just had jeans and torn khakis. And in the end, he was the one guy who developed the SMS system for us. SMS, as you might know, was started here in South Africa and developed a whole range of other things. Be brave enough to bring in young people who, even if you bring them in and you don't give them specified jobs, let them come and imagine things and dream and innovate. And one of the other areas is that those type of people will help us register patents, will help us register copyright, patents, and through patents we're then able to move to the upper level of development. The deliberations that you are going to have in this conference should result in commitments from the private sector to procure more from emerging black business and to support their integration into value chains. And I see that there are a number of black industrialist companies here that are linked through value chains with other bigger companies. We want to see more of that. They must do this even if it means changing value chains to accommodate black business. Unless tangible, sustainable measures are implemented, we run the risk that empowerment opportunities will be confined to black businesses transacting with the state. We want black businesses to broaden their horizon and to transact with whosoever and the key players in our economy. We run the risk that the private sector and the big business in particular makes little or no contribution to the empowerment of black entrepreneurs. We run the risk of stifling economic growth if we don't approach it on a broader basis. An economy that only benefits a few and does not reflect the country's demography will never be sustainable or be dynamic from a growth perspective. There can be no growth without economic inclusion and without a business sector that reflects the diversity of our people and our society. And this has been the real problem of our South African economy, because in the past it never reflected the diversity of our country and the demography of our country. There can be no inclusive recovery and reconstruction unless broad-based black economic empowerment is at the center of our efforts. This is the main remit of this government that I lead. Forget what others are trying to do to fight against broad-based economic empowerment. We will continue to insist that broad-based black economic empowerment must be at the heart of the transformation of our economy. And we will continue to do this. The newly appointed BEE Advisory Council has been tasked with advising on the future trajectory of broad-based black economic empowerment as we rebuild from the years of slow growth and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Council comprises accomplished South Africans with diverse experiences as well as expertise in business, in the economy, in labor. Our vision for the future of black economic empowerment will build on our successes, will learn from shortcomings, and must be agile enough in the response to the realities of the national and global economies. I'm pleased that exporting by black industrialists is one of the themes of this conference. This conference will be discussing opportunities to access other markets on our continent through the African Continental Free Trade Area, as well as trade arrangements that we have with the rest of the world. Tomorrow we are going to welcome President Ouattara from Cote d'Ivoire. On Friday, the reason he comes here, he wants to open up trade relations between South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire, and indeed West Africa as well. And this must be seen as a process that you as black entrepreneurs or industrialists must participate in. Our achievements through the Black Industrialist Program and other initiatives must act as the springboard to achieving higher rates of economic growth, social transformation, and expanding prosperity amongst our people. In conclusion, I wish to thank Minister Patel and his team for convening this inaugural Black Industrialist Conference. Through this conference, we want to establish a practice of recognizing but also celebrating black excellence in the economy. As government, we want to pledge our support to the endeavors of black business people, women entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs. We also want to challenge South African business to play its part. Established businesses need to understand that transformation is vital for sustained and inclusive growth, and that it is in everyone's interest that the substantial capabilities of the private sector are mobilized to support broad-based black economic empowerment. Working together, we can grow this economy, we can create jobs, and we can ensure that no one is left behind. It is therefore my pleasure to declare this inaugural Black Industrialist Conference open and wish you all a very successful participation in this conference, and I hope the deliberations will be most enriching and show us the way forward. Thank you very much.